Welcome to Inside the Taubman Approach. I'm your host, Benjamin Harding. Today, we welcome back pianist and composer Jennifer Rosenfeld. She was featured on episode 13 of Inside the Taubman Approach. Jennifer Rosenfeld, welcome. Welcome to Inside the Taubman Approach.
Thank you so much for having me.
This is the second time that we have been able to speak on this podcast, and you've been up to a lot of creative work as it pertains to the piano. In fact, just before this interview, I Googled Piano Girl, and it says, Piano Girl can refer to the musical project of Jennifer Rosenfeld.
Really?
Yes.
No way. That's cool.
Tell us about Piano Girl. We spoke about it before in terms of applying the Taubman approach to this wonderful musical project, but tell us a little bit remind our audience about the Piano Girl.
Yeah, I'm trying to think when we had our last conversation. I think it was maybe the end of 2023, and I had recorded it at that point, but I hadn't released it. So this is my first solo album, and it's a mix of classical piano repertoire and along with some original songs that I wrote, and I sing and play the piano for those, and they're kind of interspersed, woven together, and I think of it as sort of a musical memoir that captures feelings and experiences and also the sounds that I was playing and hearing at a particular time in my life, kind of end of high school throughout college, which was it was a time when I was really thinking a lot about my relationship with music, with the arts, the questions of what am I supposed to do with my life, things like that are probably very normal at that stage. But part of what inspired it, honestly, was my studies with Robert D'Urso and learning the Taubman approach and having, I think I talked about this in our last conversation, feeling this kind of renaissance or revival of my piano playing really just over the last few years. I think I started taking lessons with Bob in the very end of 2022, something like that, I think. And it has just opened up so many possibilities for me at the piano that I really thought that chapter was over. And part of what was special about making this album was in part revisiting some of the music that I had played around that time or that kind of followed me during those years. But I can play it way better now.
Yeah.
And really feeling a different kind of confidence and ability to lean into that playing now because of the Taubman approach. And so yeah, it's a really very personal project, very special for me, really fun, really intimidating. I had done a recording before of this musical that I've been working on for many years, which was a lot bigger. There were a lot of people involved, and I played the piano on that, which was also intimidating. But by contrast, I really saw that as so much of a background role with like all these great people who would lay their tracks on top. Whereas for Piano Girl, it was really all me from top to bottom. And that was a lot for me to grapple with, especially in the editing process and getting ready to release it and just making peace with certain things that I felt like were imperfections. So anyways, that's sort of the summary of that project.
And it's out there. I mean, I love listening to this project. It's a real example for us as pianists to be courageous about something that is so deeply personal to us. And that comes across in your lyrics that you've written and sort of the compositional style, your original compositions that you pursue on the album. The types of pieces, these pieces that you play are not easy. Mm-hmm. Can you speak about how the Taubman work kind of opened you up? What kind of things did the Taubman approach show you as possible in the technique?
Yeah, there were so many things. I remember early on in my lessons with Bob, a few months in when we were starting to look at repertoire and we were working on this Mozart sonata, which I think it's probably one of the ones that a lot of Taubman students will learn. And I remember he coached me through working on the right hand, working on the left hand. And I had this moment of shock where I put them together and they just sort of played. And I was like, but I don't know the piece. How is this happening? I don't understand.
Yeah.
So I think it's given me a much deeper appreciation for the mind-body connection that is inherent to playing an instrument, which I never really thought about before, which is silly because obviously it is that. But I just felt how it works on those levels so seamlessly and how when you put your body in the position to be successful, even when that's a micro adjustment of remembering to move in before you do something or considering what the shaping is, or is it a single or a double rotation? These really small things make such a huge difference in your body's ability to learn and remember and perform it in a way that you'll like the sound of. So I remember in particular, there was one piece that I recorded that was Rachmaninoff Etude Tableau in B minor, opus 39, number 4, I think. And that was I have this collection of pieces that have been on my wish list that I've wanted to learn for a long time, but whenever I would look at them in my pre-Taubman days, I would just get intimidated and give up and be like, this is hopeless. I'm never going to learn this piece. And that was one of them where it felt really out of reach technically. And I remember in some ways having this inner battle as I was learning it and doing well with it. My mindset was still stuck in a place of, no, you can't learn this piece. It's too hard for you.
Oh,
But I
wow.
was
Yeah.
playing it. Maybe not perfectly, but it was, I had spent so many years thinking, oh, that piece is really hard. And it was very
It is.
challenging. I would say
Yeah.
it's probably one of the bigger challenges for that. That was probably the most challenging piece that
Mm.
I technically. The Beethoven sonata was also hard for me in terms of holding such a big piece and recording a piece that was so big and so new for me still.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, but yeah, that Rachmaninoff piece, I was like shocked that I could play it, and it was really amazing. And I've had that experience many times. Right now, I'm having that experience again with another wish list piece that really for years I was like, oh, I'd love to play this, but it's just too hard. And now I'm very close to having learned it. This is Rondania, one of the pieces from Iberia by Albanese.
Oh,
Um, it's
wonderful.
amazing. And I have to stop telling myself this piece is really hard because I'm learning it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's been a very interesting rewiring of the relationship to difficulty when working with this technique that I don't think it necessarily judges music in that way.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's interesting.
I love that approach. Your fortitude in sort of steeling yourself to say, "Hey, this is possible because of this work." Tell us a little bit about your practice approach. I'm really interested in talking to people and finding out how they practice in relationship to the Taubman work. There are some things that are similar to our previous practice philosophies, and there's some things that are different in our practice approach. Could you describe your practice approach a little bit for us?
Sure. It's definitely an evolution and a work in progress and something I really don't feel like I knew how to do until very recently. And I'm still
Indeed,
building
we're
the
all
discipline of really
right.
practicing in a way that gives me results. And I think it was only maybe a year and a half ago, I was in a lesson with Bob, and in his very kind way, he said to me, you need to stop playing through and you need to just pick a short passage and focus on that for 20 minutes. and that's what you need to do.
Wow.
And of course I knew that, but I wasn't doing that. I was
Mhm.
avoiding. And so when I have more discipline in my mind, that's what I try to do, is to really focus and zoom in rather than zoom out. And for me, honestly, having these recording projects is really helpful because it does something in my mind where it helps filter to, okay, what do I need to do right now? And sometimes I pre-plan that, but a lot of times it's actually quite instinctive, where I'll just know, oh yeah, these 2 pages need my attention, and I'm going to zoom in, go slow, and do that. Um, and then something else that I've been working with more recently is I'm actually taking a practicing class with Molly Gebrian, and she released a book, I think a little over a year ago, which I was reading, and then the fires in Los Angeles happened, and I'm not sure where the book is. It didn't burn, but it got lost. Anyways, the whole thing there. But I'm taking her course, and it's so great. And one of the things that she has talked about a lot in the book, but also in videos she's made online, is the power of micro breaks,
Mm.
where before she was saying, you do 3 repetitions of something very small, and then you stop and you just sit there for 10, 15 seconds, look out the window. She said that's like the road being repaired. You can't drive on the road while it's being repaired. So if you take a tiny break like that, your brain is sort of stitching together those neural pathways. And it can't do that if you're just repeating, repeating, repeating. And what she was saying in our class, I'm sure it's okay for me to share this, is before she was saying, do 3 repetitions, then do a 10, 15-second break. Now she's saying, do 1 repetition and do that after every repetition. And I've been doing that, and it's crazy. It really works. It's really
Wow.
powerful. So that, and another thing she said that was really helpful to me was really audit your mindset when you're doing those repetitions. And can you be that encouraging voice to yourself instead of saying, oh, you just messed it up again, like don't do that again, or you're never going to get this, or those normal thoughts that are in there, but instead to really say, okay, take a deep breath, or you can do this. Or because I think what she said was, if you're patterning in a feeling of stress, of pressure on yourself, of whatever negative feeling as you do the repetition, that's also what you're practicing. That's also what you're baking in
Yeah.
to that
Yeah.
passage. And for those challenging, high stress passages, the ones that we worry about, it's so important to also practice how we want to feel on the inside as we're doing them, as well as practicing how to execute them. So I'm finding she's a neuroscientist and a violist. So I'm finding her strategies to be really helpful. And as you know, I have baby twins right now. So really on my mind is efficiency, and I I don't want to waste time when I'm at the piano. I want to see results from my practice. So I think all this coming together is helping me a lot, and it's very exciting and very motivating.
I think you'll concur with what I'm about to kind of process with you, is that it's almost as if the Taubman work gives us the tools and the truth to say, I can do this, right? So it's not wishful thinking when you're doing those mental exercises and really creating those neural pathways. It's saying, wow, the Taubman approach actually opens up this as a possibility to achieve. And then the other thing that kind of comes to mind is how prescient Dorothy Taubman was in sort of connecting the brain with physical action. This is before sort of neuroscience was sort of, popular, but it seems like neuroscience is confirming so many things that she was exploring in the Taubman work, like interdependence of the hands and memorization and those kinds of things. That is fascinating, Jennifer. I know that your story is going to help a lot of people sort of take stock of how they're treating themselves in a practice situation. What kinds of projects are you excited about now? So you're looking at this Ibanez piece and some other things, but what kinds of projects are you pursuing now that the Taubman work is sort of, continuing to provide that encouragement and positive energy to say, yes, you can do this?
Yeah. Well, I remember years ago, part of what got me back into piano before I started taking lessons with Bob was I did this summer music program with the European American Music Alliance. And I did it, this was during COVID, so it was virtual. But one of the things that one of the teachers there said was, if you've played the piano, you have a tremendous advantage as a composer because, and it really doesn't matter what your level at the piano was, but you have a physical understanding of four-part harmony. And
Yes.
for me, as someone who has had a challenging and painful relationship with the piano, that in part my album was about, and I would say the last few years working with Bob have really healed. At that moment, prior to that, that was very helpful for me to hear that no matter the trials and tribulations I've been through, this is still useful to me. Like there's
Mm.
still, at that point, I wasn't really thinking about investing more in my piano skills. I was really just wanting to compose more and just feeling like, oh, wow, the years I've put in as a pianist are paying off for my compositional work. That was really encouraging to hear. And something that he said was, keep learning new music, keep playing composers you've never played before, because it all adds to your not just mental, oral understanding of different types of music, but it goes into your body. And so that really stuck with me and has been a motivator as I think about wanting to write new music, which I
Yes.
do. A big part of it is because honestly, with piano, it's just so fun for me. I'm really enjoying it. I wake up and one of the first things is, oh my gosh, I want to go practice, which I can't believe I have those thoughts. It's crazy. When I think about high school me and younger, the version of me that fought practicing so much, now it's like, oh, when do I get to go do that? I
Yeah.
wish I could do it more. So, yeah, I think about a new project that I'll be working on. I'm starting work on a new musical or musical opera. I'm not sure what it's going to be, but I am thinking about what is the sound world that I
Hmm.
want to pull into that and what are the pieces that I want to be studying to help me there. And another thing too is because I was pregnant and then I had babies. It just sort of felt like the last 2 years were a bit of a pause in some ways, and I really would like to polish the repertoire that I was working on last year. So that's one of my projects. I would like to do another recording. I don't have an idea for what that's going to be yet. But yeah, I would say also on the note of practicing, a personal goal for me is to move through repertoire faster or to learn
Mm-hmm.
it faster. And sometimes that, I think what that will mean for me is being thoughtful about what I'm choosing. So I tend to have, Bob said this to me. He's like, you have very expensive tastes when it comes to, yeah. So there's that, but there's also a lot of pieces that I do like that are not the hardest. And I think it's healthy for me to learn more now that I am turning the corner on this one piece from Iberia. I'm like, oh, I think it would be so cool if I could learn all of book 2, which would be daunting. I've spent years on that first movement, but maybe with the Taubman approach and some new practice tools and more mental discipline, it would be amazing if I could learn those other 2 pieces within the next few months and perform all three of them together. So that's sort of a personal goal. I feel like right now with piano, my goals are more personal for my own development rather than something to put out there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But what I've just been experiencing is this feeling of maybe there is no limit on how much I can improve as a pianist. So I want to keep marching in that direction and see what's possible for me.
And as a composer, do you find that, exploring, as you mentioned, exploring this repertoire, um, allowing it to sort of inhabit your body and mind and soul, how has that kind of enhanced your kind of approach and listening and in your compositional process? What's that been like?
Yeah, well, composition, most of what I write is vocal music with accompaniment. I haven't written much instrumental. I haven't written any solo piano pieces. Maybe I will, maybe I won't, I don't know. But a huge part of composition is texture. And that's one of the easiest things to borrow and steal from the greats. And for my Piano Girl album, I did that very shamelessly. And I was sort of looking for things that I could steal. And I feel like it's pretty blatant. I don't know if people are going to know, but like in one of the songs, I literally use the progression from, or the texture from Fantasy Impromptu, which was something I played in high school. Over a different uh, sequence, harmonically, but I was like, oh yeah, that 4-against-3 pattern. I should totally do that here. So I think when we have that vocabulary of so many pieces we've played with different textures, when you're writing music, it's fun to be like, oh, I want something like that. I want something like the Chopin etude with the arpeggios, or
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
um, I've stolen a lot from Chopin for a lot of my music. He just has so many good textures, right?
Absolutely.
It's the best.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I remember I was working on a song for my musical, The White Rose, and I was playing a Brahms Rhapsody at the time, the second one, and
Oh,
that shows up in
lovely.
there.
Yep.
I think it's really obvious. I'm surprised. I guess
People
you
don't.
have to know
Yeah.
all your piano rep to hear it, or maybe people wouldn't notice, but it's so helpful to just be like, "Oh, I'm gonna do that here." So, but I consider myself a musical theater composer where, well, maybe I shouldn't be self-denigrating, or I feel like the standards for complete originality maybe are a little lower, and I think there is a lot in that genre that is referential towards other things, which I
Mm-hmm.
enjoy.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, you
But at the
know.
sa- but at the same time, not to be, differential, to yourself, is to say, I've listened to your album many times, and the craft is what speaks to me. It's like, yeah, the textures and sort of the quotations to really highlight the text that you're highlighting, but the lines are really really special in so many moments, and it's a your style is very highly crafted. It's organized, it's thoughtful, and I think it has emotional impact. Yeah, so to hear that, and the way you practice and the way you've been exposed to the Taubman work, this is really fascinating to me as a somebody who wants to start to compose, and this is so encouraging to hear.
Hmm. Thank you. Well, it's really fun, and I don't know that I'll ever write an orchestral piece. It doesn't really call to me, but when I was in college, for instance, I always loved musicals, and I always loved art song, and that very intimate scale of a piece, that dialogue between a singer and the piano is, I think, incredibly special. And so that's something I really enjoy writing for and love exploring the detail work that's available in there. So, yeah, It's really so great to feel like, oh, I have so many more tools. And the Taubman approach has been so key in opening that up.
Thank you, Jennifer. We're going to include all of your wonderful website in the show notes, of course, and point people to listening to the Piano Girl and all of your other, musical output as a professional musician that you are. It's so exciting to have you back on the podcast, and we'll do it again. We'll have you on sooner rather than later, because I can't wait to hear more of your work in the piano and in composition. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me. This has been really fun.